Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Jay Veal with us today. Jay is an edupreneur. He's been featured various times on Forbes, Entrepreneur, NBC, Black Enterprise, Business Insider, Rolling Out. He's been on TED a couple of times as well. Jay is quite the accomplished man right there. So he's founder and CEO at It's Not Complicated Education. So we're going to talk about education, folks, today. This pod is presented to you by podpire.com. That is my podcasting company. If you want to start, scale, be invited to a podcast like this one, go to podpire.com. Jay, I'm glad to have you on. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thanks for inviting me to the podcast. Everybody out there as well. Hello, my name is Jay Veal, CEO of Inc. Education. Also the Jay Veal brand and Black Tutors of Social Media. I'm based out in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in the Frisco area, far north Dallas. Originally, I'm from Northeast to LA in California, but been raised pretty much all over the place. My parents from the military. Lived in Japan for a couple of years, Korea and other places. So was a military brat. In addition to that, graduated high school when I had just turned 16. I was a freshman in high school at 12 years old, so I was relatively pretty young. Then after I graduated high school, went off to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and then did college there, and then came back to the University of Texas at Arlington. I finished off my master's degree in education. My after my original background in tech, working at Microsoft and other companies, and upon graduation, I went to the education space in 2008. Got I guess you could say, an epiphany from the higher power, from the higher being that said I needed to be in education. So I switched from tech to education. Ended up teaching at my alma mater where I graduated from. My first year teaching, did a class called Fast Track Mathematics, and basically that was teaching freshmen 3 years of pre-AP math in 1 year. So if you can imagine, as a freshman taking geometry, pre-calculus, and algebra 2 all in 1 year, that's the class that I taught. And all my kids on the first year got 100% perfect scores on the state exam. So I figured education must be the thing for me. So I stayed in it for another 3.5 years. And then after that, got promoted to become an instructional coach. I taught teachers for 3 years and then became a district level administrator over 7 schools for STEM instructional coaching. And then became an adjunct professor at a university for 4 years for math. So in between all that time, I noticed that there was a gap between what students of color were not getting in the classroom for support and what they were not getting inside the classroom for support. So I started Inc. Education, and back then it was called Inc. Tutoring. And so we have an approach to tutoring that is very different. We build solid relationships with parents and students first on the front end, real deep, and then include different stakeholders in their learning processes. So parents, teachers, counselors, students, and coaches if they're in sports, to make sure that everybody's on one page academically and pedagogically. We mentor students and provide back-end support. So up to now, we have impacted over 11,000 students get A's and B's in about 55 different topics across the board. We've helped over 11,000 students. Our team is 60 people, or I'm sorry, 90 people, between Dallas, Fort Worth, Chicago, Austin, Houston, Atlanta, and New York. We are the top Black and Brown owned education and tutoring company in the country. And like you said, we've been featured everywhere. We're an over $1.8 million brand to this point, and I'm just continuing the pathway of impact. In addition to that, with the Jay Veal brand, it's a credit and financial literacy organization, and where I also help people get their credit where it needs to be. I don't do credit repair. However, I do everything else and make sure that the public has financial literacy initiatives that they're actually coming up, they're learning and things of that nature. So all that good stuff.
How did you get that epiphany? Like, tell us about that very story.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually working, funny story, I was hired at the time recently. This was back in was this 2007-ish. I had just got hired. A guy that's from the University of Texas in Austin wanted to leave his role as operations manager and move up. So he had to hire somebody to take his role basically. And so I had got hired like in, I want to say it was April-ish of that year. And then June of that year, almost less than 90 days, I said, "Hey man, I hate to tell you this, but I really got this epiphany from the Lord and God that said, I need to be in education. And he literally just talked to me and was like, you need to be in education, and poof, he was gone. And I figured, well, if I get something from, if I get the word from him, then that must mean that I must be needing to do something else. And so he was pretty mad, 'cause he had just hired me, but at the same time, I would get this epiphany from him saying what I need to do in my life. And education is a passion of mine. Working with students, adult students, and K to 12, K to doctoral students is my passion. I got good at it, and the Lord placed me where I needed to be, and here we are now, from teaching to being a professor to being an instructional coach to being an entrepreneur. So it worked out.
And what are your top goals this year? What are you spending your time on nowadays?
Yeah, so right now I'm looking at trying to increase the amount of staff that we have. So from an HR perspective, want to grow the team from 90 people, 90 consultants to 300 consultants by the end of Q2 of this year. So we can scale in a different way. So we can take on more jobs from a team perspective. Outside of that, I also am looking to get an edtech platform built with about 13 different features. So I want to have it kind of feature rich that tailors to the BIPOC community for how they learn. But we will service everybody with that once we can get that built from some developers. So that's kind of on the map to be done as well. I do start an entrepreneur accelerator in the fall, and I'm looking into doing another one, possibly from Techstars. So we'll see kind of where that lands us. But at the same time, the real main goal now is increasing staff to scale, and then building an edtech platform that is nothing like what's out there today, that's all inclusive of multiple different features, and students can get the content that they need for the way that they need it, not take away from the physical tutoring that happens, but also adds to what we already do as a company.
Why is education and inclusion important for you?
You said one more time, what's that? How's education and what?
Inclusion is important
Okay.
to you.
Yeah, so two things. One, education is very important to me because when I got started in my journey in education, growing up. My mom had placed me in the math and science magnet programs at the time, and that's kind of where, they pick top of the top students basically to go to the schools, but the curriculum is a harder curriculum, right? So I was challenged in ways that I wasn't challenged at other schools. And me being a freshman at 12 years old and graduating a little earlier than normal, it kept my mind full, right? Meaning I was able to learn and soak up and be a sponge as many things as possible. And so for me, it allows me to then go out into the marketplace and do what I need to do. However, I will say this in my educational journey. Some people will say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't use my degree, and I didn't use this, I didn't use that." I am very fortunate to have used my degrees, both of them, education and IT and tech, and be able to move into another space in the university level and teach there as well. So for me, I learned I learned it enough for me to do that, be in education, be in engineering, be in business, be an entrepreneur, and be a leader. Now, from the inclusion side of the house, I think inclusion is very necessary to make sure that you have the right students in the right classes, and the diversity of that for me means that you got to put everybody on a level playing field, right? You can't always single somebody out just because maybe they're in special education, they have ADHD, they have ADD, they have Asperger's, they have autism, whatever the case may be. Everybody has different learning styles, and some people may have learning disabilities. And I think that having inclusion in the mix allows everybody to be on the same playing field, learning the same content, but just with a twist, right? We're doing things a little bit differently so that student is able to get what they need. Although they don't have the same pathway that a normal student would have it, they have enough tools and resources so that way they can take part in the same activities and education situations as those in the general public can do. So it's very important for sure. I think you
Massive
froze
lag
there.
here. Yeah, come back. And yeah, I guess that division and the lack of education in the US is a big problem with the upcoming elections. What do you have to say about that?
There's a lot of different things that are on track to be discussed, I would say, through the election and in education at large. As a matter of fact, I have a some topics that I had wrote down that are I would say very important to note. And one of those topics is kind of AI in the classroom, right? What does that look like? Is it going to be detrimental to the students, or is it going to be a tool that they can use? So it's not necessarily a thing that people say, oh, you know, my student is using open AI and ChatGPT for cheating, right? They're using it as a tool in order for them to get work done. That's one thing, right? The second thing is, how does it look like to have school or school choice, right? And what can my student choose whatever school that they want to be in, or do they have to be in the schools that they're assigned to within zoning in their particular district and where they particularly live? I think it's very important to have schools that you're able to choose from that fits the I want to say that fits the learning style and the content and the degree that you want to get possibly when you get out of school, right? That's another thing. I think a third thing is being able to enhance uh, literacy and reading and writing initiatives as well as math, right? When the pandemic happened in 2020, there's a lot that went on for students, and they had to, you know, college students were already good to go in online learning, but elementary, middle school, and high school students, that wasn't something that they did on a normal basis. So when that came about, there's a lot of learning loss that occurred. So now we're trying to come back from that, even in 2024, and getting these kids to be not only literate in English and reading, but and making sure that they understand how to do the right math, right? And another thing is financial literacy, right? How are these kids getting financially literate right now? There's only a couple of states, one of them being Florida. I know they're doing some things in New York here pretty soon, but there's only a couple of states where they're implementing financial literacy initiatives. I think it needs to be deeper than what we currently have, and students don't only need to be taught what money is about, but how do they utilize credit? How do they leverage credit? How can they build legacies for themselves? How do they go about life insurance policies? You know, how do they go about saving and you know, possibly real estate and these kind of different things and assets that they can include to build wealth for themselves and or their families. But with the election coming along, a lot of things have to be discussed. A lot of you're getting to see a lot of articles too about the 4 day school week as well. I think that the 4 day school week would be beneficial to a lot of students and a lot of teachers and administrators in the classrooms and in education because it gives you a little bit of a break, but you just have to cover content in a more quick fashion, right? So that way you get as much in as you can. But the election, who you vote for, is going to determine a lot of different things all the way down from the Secretary of Education to laws that have to be passed in education to different things. So that's kind of my take on that part.
What about teaching entrepreneurship? Like, I was reflecting on that the other day, and it seems to me personally that the education system kept me in a prison for 18 years and really limited my capabilities to add value in this market, to get paid, and to get my independence, my freedom, by keeping me in a classroom. Well, I thought I should have been getting experience on the field and getting paid, right? Like I add value to you, you exchange money in exchange. Um, don't you feel that like most students nowadays, instead of trying to get educated to fit the big corporate machine, shouldn't they start a startup instead? Shouldn't that be the default state?
So I got a couple of things on that. When I first started in education, I thought the whole, you know, kids go to school, they get a degree, they get out, they go in the workforce or the corporate world, and they make things happen and make money on their own, right? Was the original thought. When I became an entrepreneur, an edupreneur, you know, in the middle of 2015, and my time from then to now in today's society, I currently believe that there are a multitude different ways for you to get value and for you to do great things in the public eye, right? You can go into the military, you can become an entrepreneur, You can learn a trade. You can do so many things to get yourself out there. I think that you're right, right? To control your own destiny, there's only two options you have in life. You work for somebody or you work for yourself, right? You either get paid for your time, right? You trade time for money, or you trade time for freedom, right? So I think that entrepreneurship is very important to not only get taught, but for students and adults to open up their time to being free to do things that they want to do, right? Because folks are always talking about, yo, how can I have more time, more flexibility? Well, the only way to do that is to build your own schedule and have your own business and be able to move around like you want to move around. But at the same time, one thing about school is that a lot of schools here, even in Dallas Fort Worth area, a lot of schools are now implementing more CTE programs and being able to um, uh, you can learn trades while you're in the school. There's programs where you can like learn how to become an electrician. You can learn how to be a plumber. You can learn how to do HVAC. You can learn how to um, be in tech for yourself and start consulting firms. Like all these different things now are being implemented in the school systems to where you can learn real life skill sets that you can put into movement and earn money from. So I think it's a double-edged sword. Like I said, was blessed to have a lot of different things going on, right? I got my degree, got 2 degrees in education and tech. And then I got my certification for teaching, right? And then I was also in the military at a point in time as well in the Navy. So I think that for me, either which way I went, I was going to use my degree and be fruitful in every direction that I pushed, but not everybody's like that. So I think that everybody needs to be in position to have something now, today's society where interest rates are high, mortgages are high, auto loans are high, and everything is high due to inflation. You need more than one job or more than one skill set to make it. So,
What challenges have you faced along the way in founding your own company?
so I would say a couple of different things, right? One of those is finding out how to operate in an efficient way in the beginning, right? When I first started in 2000, 2015, I had more so had the way that consultants got paid and things of that nature. I had it set up a different way to where they would take a percentage of the hourly rate or whatever, or whatnot, right? And I kind of went in their favor of such. Now the revenue line was kind of more, it was like this, but it was like slow, right? So I had to figure out how to get my revenue line to be more steep, more like this, as an entrepreneur. So I had a guy, one of my, he now is a COO of our organization, Clinton. He was able to help me um, streamline how consultants can get paid, and we could still get, what we needed on the bottom line. So what we did was we moved from that model of payment to moving to an hourly rate based on skill set for the tutoring consultants that came on board. And that allowed us to have more flexibility, if you will, on the bottom line, on the back end. And then the consultants got what they needed on the front end. And that was one challenge and one thing that I had to change in order for me to scale in a different manner. The second fact of change would be or challenge would be team. How do you grow an organization skillfully, right? And be able to keep individuals who are valuable individuals to the team in place for a long, long, long time, right? So, there's turnover. People have find new things to do. They accomplish new goals, so they have to leave or whatever the case may be. But staffing has always been an interesting situation to make sure that we have the right people going on the right bus, going the right direction at all times for the organization, and having them believe in the craft and the mission of Inc. Education. And so I would say those two things, and in addition to that, just being able to understand how to, in the beginning, how to really market myself. But as you see, from the beginning to today, I definitely learned a lot more about marketing and PR, and we've been in a lot of the top publications in the world. So it's a good look.
Yeah, how do you get on all these publications?
Yeah, so originally, there was a time when I actually ended up tutoring the kids of the senior producer for Steve Harvey show and the Tom Joyner morning show back then, many years ago. And from that point, there was a barter exchange that occurred, which was, hey, is there a way to have, my organization, featured in this platform? And we worked something out on the tutoring services as well. And that's what was done. And when that was done, on my first time being in Black Enterprise, was the rolling stone, if you will, of getting into media from there. And so I learned a lot doing that, because then I got the opportunity later, about 2 years later down that line, or 3 years later down that line, I was asked to be a contributing writer to Black Enterprise for education articles and financial literacy and credit articles. So for me, I took what I learned in media and was able to turn it into a way to pitch journalists and be able to drum up PR for my own organization. So I've never in life hired a PR firm. I've never needed to hire a PR firm. I've never had to talk to people going that route. I just was able to either get it through earned media, which means our company earned our right to be, to be featured, and or folks just understood and knew what we were doing, and they just wanted to be, they just wanted to share the news and share the good things that we're doing in the community. So all that stuff was earned value, and people are seeing it. So we're getting featured, and we're getting other opportunities because of the mission that we serve.
Very cool. And if you'd have to project yourself 5 to 10 years in the future, where would you be?
So I would say now, 5 to 10 years in the future, Inc. Education has a phenomenal edtech platform that is serving students nationally and globally. Other tutoring companies, either private and or the big box stores like a Sylvan, Kumon, Mathnasium, or iLevel, are now looking to us as a leader and or a partner in this space to service, the BIPOC community and beyond. And our team will have grown exponentially during that time, and we will have had a lot more opportunities and contracts to work with schools, work with nonprofit organizations, and work with other private entities for those that need education and tutoring services. Because we don't just do tutoring, right? I forgot to mention this. We help students out from kindergarten to PhD level in all STEM subjects, test preps, English reading, writing, and foreign languages, but we also do professional development and training, workshops, mentoring, academic coaching and counseling, and resume review writing, and beyond. So we're not just a tutoring brand, but we're a one-stop shop where you can go for all your educational needs. So I think that not only will our team have grown by then, but there's things that we can do to license out the Inc. way of education and tutoring to big box stores, private entities, and we'll become partners with several individuals down the line.
Love it, Jay. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so I am definitely on Facebook under Jay Veal, also under It's Not Complicated Education LLC on Instagram. I go by The Top Tutor, so THETOP is in Paul, TUTOR, and also Inc. Education and the Jay Veal brand. And then our website is www.inceducationllc.com or the Jay Veal brand .com or blacktutorsassocialmedia.com as well. And we're on TikTok as well. So any major media platform, you can definitely use Google as well, but we're everywhere.